Hello there, my name is Stephanie Hylinski. I'm the Curator of Live Animals here at the Boonshoft Museum of Discovery. And today I have with me one of my own personal favorite animals who lives here at the Boonshoft Museum. And if you have been to the Boonshoft before, you may be familiar with Patience, our Lynn's two-fingered or two-toed sloth. Now, including Patience, we have about 187 different animals that live here at the Boonshoft Museum of Discovery. That does not include every single cockroach, but we do have quite a few fish. We have a lot of different types of animals of almost 40 different species living here at the Boonshoft Museum. So lately, Patience, I feel like, has been one of our most popular animals, but in addition to her, we have quite a few other animals that call the museum home. And like I said, Patience is called a Lynn's two-fingered or two-toed sloth. Now, you can call them whatever you'd like, but technically we're trying to rename sloths a little bit right now because two-fingered sloths have two fingers on their front feet. You might see that right here. But all sloths actually have three toes. You can see 1, 2, 3 claws on their back feet. So technically she's a two-fingered sloth and not actually a three-toed or a two-toed sloth because she actually has three toes on her back feet. And sloths are interesting animals. Like I said, it's one of my personal favorite animals. They are in the Xenarthran family, so that's kind of a big scary word. All you really need to know is that sloths are not monkeys. They're not primates like us. They're not related to monkeys or apes or humans. They are in the Xenarthran family, which includes sloths, anteaters, and armadillos. So it's kind of a strange group of animals. They've been on the planet for a very long time. If you've ever been to the museum before, we have a giant ground sloth skeleton downstairs in our lobby. So that is, I like to say, that's like Patience's great-great-grandpa. So her ancestor was that giant ground sloth. So today's sloths are quite a bit smaller than sloths used to be thousands of years ago. So Patience here weighs about 20 pounds, but those really giant ground sloths could weigh hundreds, sometimes even thousands of pounds. So today's modern sloths are quite a bit smaller than their cousins or their ancestors, those giant ground sloths. And you can see, she's kind of hiding right now, but you can see Patience is snacking on some sweet potato, and that's one of her favorite treats. When she comes out and she has some interaction with people, when she's on her stand, she's always going to get a special treat as a way to reward her and a way to say, hey, Patience, thank you so much for coming out. You're going to get a special treat as a way to say thank you and also to make this a positive experience. Whenever we're interacting with the animals here at the museum, we try to make it a positive experience. We never want it to be negative. We always want the animal to come away from the situation thinking, hey, that was actually really great because I got an awesome treat. And for Patience, it is sweet potato. I've also got some green beans for her here, which is one of her favorite treats as well. And sloths are herbivores, so they're strict vegetarians. Every once in a while, they might eat some eggs, maybe some bugs. They eat leaves, so scientists think they might just accidentally eat some caterpillars and some bugs as they're eating leaves. And here at the museum, we feed Patience a wide variety of fresh produce every day. She gets carrot, sweet potato, apple, pear. She gets some spinach, some romaine lettuce. One of her favorites is half a hard-boiled egg, so she does get a little bit of egg as extra protein. But in the wild, again, they would be pretty strict herbivores. And really, wild sloths eat mainly leaves. So we feed her kind of a variety of fruits and veggies here at the zoo, but in the wild, they'd be eating all different types of leaves from lots of different species of tree. And the nice thing about being a sloth is you live in the tree, you eat from the tree, you don't have to move very far. So a lot of times scientists, if they find a sloth living in one place and they put that in their GPS or they write down those coordinates, they can come back and find that sloth year after year. They're not going to migrate from place to place. They usually stay in one area for mostly their entire lives. And the mom sloth does all the work. So usually mom has one baby. Sometimes she can have twins, but unfortunately mom usually can't raise both babies on her own. It takes a lot of work for a mom sloth to raise her young. The baby does stay with mom for almost a year, so it takes a lot of work for her to take care of one baby. She can't usually take care of two babies on her own. But even after the baby leaves mom, a lot of times they don't move too far. They'll just move right next door and maybe live at a tree nearby mom. Sloths, even though they don't like to be with other sloths, we call them solitary animals, which means they prefer to be by themselves. They are not territorial. They're not aggressive towards each other. So if two sloths come together in the rainforest, usually they're not going to fight. A lot of times they will share space. Each sloth kind of has their own tree, but as long as another sloth doesn't mess with their tree, they don't really get aggressive or too territorial with other sloths. But usually the only time sloths are going to come together is during the breeding season, when the boys and the girls are coming together having babies, and then also when the mom is raising her baby. When the baby's born, it is on mom's stomach, and the baby has fur. Its eyes and ears are open right away, so it is a more independent baby than maybe a kitten or a puppy where its eyes are closed and they can't really see or take care of themselves at all. Sloth babies are a little bit more independent than some other babies are. They have their eyes open and they do have fur. Now, Patience is being a little shy, but if she turns her face this way, you'll notice, I'm going to bribe her with a little bit of a green bean here. You'll notice she has a very large nose. So sloths have excellent senses of smell. I like to say if you look at an animal's face, you might be able to tell what that animal is good at. Like our bat-eared foxes here at the museum have gigantic ears. They have really good hearing. That makes sense. Patience here has a very large nose. A lot of times I'll call it a pig nose. And she has an excellent sense of smell. But if you look closely at her face and look at her eyes, you'll notice her eyes are very tiny. She has very, very small eyes, very poor eyesight. And really, she's going to see the world, I like to say, using her nose. I really don't think she can see too far. She's very nearsighted. So she's going to find her food, avoid predators, and kind of find her way through the world using that nose. And this species of sloth does live in the rainforest, and that's true for all sloths. All sloths live in trees, and that's why it's really important to protect sloths. We have to protect the rainforest. Some animals can survive without the trees. Sloths are not one of them, because like I said, they live in the tree, they eat from the tree. Having trees is very important for sloth survival. Because on the ground, they're very slow, they're very clumsy. In the trees, they're slow as well, but they can move about 6 to 8 feet a minute, which is actually pretty quickly if you think about it. They can move more quickly than you might expect, but they're very awkward and clumsy and slow on the ground. So that's the last place a sloth wants to be, is down on the ground, because that's where they're going to get eaten by a predator. And a main predator for Lynn's two-fingered sloths, like Patience here, mostly going to be big cats, jaguars, mountain lions, also anacondas and harpy eagles. Now, their biggest predator, probably the biggest threat to them, are those big cats and the harpy eagles. And those animals hunt their food by movement. So that's part of the reason sloths move so slowly, is that the slower you move, the harder it's going to be for a harpy eagle or a jaguar to see you and come eat you for dinner. Another reason they're so slow is because they're saving their energy. It takes a ton of energy for them to digest their food. They have a 4-chambered stomach just like a cow does, and that means it takes them a long time, and it also takes a lot of work and energy for them to just digest the food they're eating, because they're just eating salad all day long. They're just eating leaves. So it takes a lot of energy to digest all of the fiber in the leaves that they eat. So part of the reason they're so slow is to save that energy for digestion rather than to use that energy for moving around. Now, when they do move, it's usually pretty slow. Like I said, if they're startled or if they feel threatened, they can move quickly. They have sharp claws, they have sharp teeth, and they will protect themselves if they have to. But for the most part, they are very slow-moving animals. They do sometimes come down to the ground to go to the bathroom. So I just said, that's the last place a sloth usually wants to be, is down on the ground. But for some reason, they go down to the ground to go to the bathroom. No one is entirely sure why that is. Some scientists think that the sloth is eating from the tree, and going to the bathroom at the base of the tree is a way to fertilize the tree and help the tree to grow. Another theory is that if you're up in the tree and you're a sloth and you have to go to the bathroom, you poop, and there's a jaguar on the ground, that jaguar knows right where you are, and he might come up and try to eat you. So no one is entirely sure why sloths go down to the ground to go to the bathroom. It's still kind of a natural mystery, but they usually only go to the bathroom once a week, and that is totally natural for them. Like I said, their digestion is so slow that it takes a long time for that food to pass through their system. So what she's eating today could take a week. It could take up to 3 weeks to pass through her system and come out the other end. So I like to say, really everything a sloth does, it's slow. They move slowly, they eat slowly, they even go to the bathroom slowly. But that's usually the only time you see a sloth down on the ground, is when they have to go to the bathroom once a week. And again, we talked about why they might do that. And Patience here is almost 8 years old. She'll be turning 8 in August. She's still very young for a sloth. Now, some animals, if you're 8 years old, you might be a little on the older side, but sloths can live a very long time. So usually in the wild, a sloth is going to live about 10 to 15 years. But in zoos, they receive excellent medical care. They have protection from predators. They get food every single day. So a lot of times, animals living in zoos can live longer than animals living in the wild. So in the wild, a sloth would be lucky to live 20 years, 15, 20 years. But under human care in zoos, they can live 30 to 40 years. And I think the oldest sloth actually just turned 50 years old in Germany. So these animals under human care can live a very long time. We're not entirely sure how long they could live. It could be under human care And that one in Germany is 50. Maybe they could live 60 years, or maybe they could even live longer. So thank you guys so much for joining me to meet Patience today. It looks like she's ready to go back to bed. Now, sloths don't actually sleep 20 hours a day like people try to say they do. They sleep about 10 to 14 hours a day and are usually awake for about 10 to 14 hours each night. So people might say you're lazy like a sloth. Sloths are not lazy. They are awake a lot of the evening, especially this species is very nocturnal, so we're going to be awake at night. And also we talked about why they move slowly, that slowness is actually an adaptation that helps the sloth to survive. So you're not lazy if you're like a sloth, you're just conserving your energy and saving it for later. And again, my name is Stephanie and I work here at the Boonshoft Museum, and this is Patience, and thank you guys so much for joining us today.